what is basically the script or the storyline that explains how it works. And this is where it's just kind of this curiosity of, digging into the product and really just understanding it inside and out.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are and wherever you're watching from. I'm Matt Pierce, host of the Visual Lounge, where we talk about using images and video in the workplace. Today, we're going to be talking about how do you go from the idea of a video, maybe you're talking about a piece of software, maybe you're talking about some training things that you need to do, or maybe you just want to get a message out there. So the idea and breaking it down into making sure you get the right content to your audience and helping us do that. If you don't know Kevin Stratvert, you guys want to go watch his stuff. He makes really awesome, amazing videos. And the thing that I loved as I watched some of them just today in preparation for this interview, they're not complicated, but he's got a way about breaking things down that is really fantastic. So let me do this. Let me introduce Kevin and we'll get him out of the show and we'll get talking. Kevin teaches millions of students around the world every month across YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and other social media platforms to help them master technology, achieve more at work, and succeed at school. He's been featured on CNBC, Fast Company, GeekWire, and Windows Central. He's an ex-Microsoft product manager and now a full-time education content creator. And with that said, please help me welcome Kevin Stratvert to the Visual Lounge.
Hey, Kevin. Hey, thanks so much for having me, Matt. Hey, no, it's great to be here. Really excited to chat with you today.
Well, I am thrilled, and we got a lot of things that we can talk about. So we're going to dive into questions and help people get to know you and all the great stuff that you do through these questions. So the first thing I want to know, pretty basic question, but how did you get started with using video? Because you got that product manager background. This wasn't there kind of like the first thing that you did. So what led you to video?
Yeah, I think video is just an excellent medium to communicate ideas. And when I worked at so before becoming a full-time YouTuber, I worked at Microsoft as a full-time product manager. And one thing I noticed over time is that you have tons of people working and more people have to wear an IT hat, and you have to use new software tools, you have to use new programs, and that's complicated. And I wanted some way to explain it to people. And, the challenge is you can't just sit down with people in person and explain things because you can't scale that way. And it turns out that video is very good at scaling and allowing you to reach a lot of people. So that's what led me down the path of, hey, can I use video as a way to educate and just help more people get the most out of their technology?
Yeah, it's interesting because I was reading, or maybe it was in a podcast I was listening to, and they talked about the tech stack that a lot of companies have, especially larger companies, right? Your tech stack, the tools that you have access to every day grows. And it was like 60 or 70 different programs that you might be able to run on your machine that IT just said, here you go, right? So that I love that was the genesis for this, because it's great if you have access to tools, but if you don't know how to use them, it doesn't really matter. So as you're thinking about go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just going to add to that, like working at Microsoft, even just within that one company, the number of tools that are coming out and the number of tools you have to learn how to use. even I sometimes felt overwhelmed by all the tools. And then you add in all these other companies and all these other products, and at times it could really just be overwhelming for people. And so that's really where I saw this opportunity to just help educate people about those tools.
Yeah, and I'm guessing that a lot of people were coming to you like, hey, Kevin, did you figure out how to do this, or what's this thing, right?
Right, exactly.
Well, let me ask you my next question, because you've made a lot of videos. There's a lot on your channel. You're consistently producing. When you set out, just kind of generally here to make a video, there's some kind of like instructional goal, it seems like. As I just watched one on AI that I thought was really great, using PowerPoint for just the design tool and stuff like that. It was really informative, and I feel like I know PowerPoint pretty well, so that's saying something. When you do that, how do you define success? Like, is it that you're looking at like the audience outcome? And obviously I'm not so worried about the YouTube metrics and like that, but like, what is it that you say like, oh man, I know this was a successful video because, and fill in the blank?
Yeah, usually the way you know a video will be a success if there's a massive need for that area. And so just as an example with the AI video in PowerPoint, PowerPoint's been around for a very long time. And I think most people would say like, hey, I'm pretty comfortable and confident using PowerPoint. But the product keeps innovating, and there's been this massive influx of these different AI tools that can take tasks that you did previously and really simplify them and make them a lot easier. And so you have all these new features and innovations coming into products. And I think a lot of times, people might not be aware of what all of them are. And so you have a lot of people using PowerPoint. And I think it goes back to what are kind of challenges or struggles that people have. And so using PowerPoint seems pretty easy, but making a beautiful slide presentation, that takes quite a bit more work. And I think a lot of people, when they look at that, they're like, wow, like I don't know if I have the necessary design skills to pull together this beautiful presentation. Or even when I deliver the presentation, I don't know if I'm necessarily the best speaker. And I think a lot of people can relate to those challenges, like making beautiful presentations and also doing a great job delivering the content. So those are two pain points that I think a lot of people have. And so what makes a great video is when you have these pain points that people have, and then the video helps address those pain points and make them easier. So with this PowerPoint AI video, you could take just a bare bones outline of a deck, and using AI, you can make your slide presentation look beautiful. And I think when people see that, it's like, oh wow, like I didn't know PowerPoint could do this. I didn't know that feature was there. And then also when it comes time to present, you have all these organizations like Toastmasters and others where it's all about how do you become a better presenter. And it turns out in PowerPoint now, there's an AI tool that will look at your presentation and look at your speaking and then give you real-time feedback as you're delivering it. So if you're using, say, filler words, or if you're speaking too fast, it'll step in and give you that feedback. So usually the way I know it's going to be a great video is you have some pain point, you have some challenge that a lot of people have, and then there's this tool out there that you might not know about that solves those pains and those challenges. And that's usually the winning combination. Like a lot of times as I'm brainstorming ideas and I see these challenges and I find some tool that solves those longstanding challenges, I just know it's going to be a popular video. So that's kind of my kind of the process that I go through to know that it's going to be successful content.
Well, I love that because there's this practical sense, right? Like you are looking for an audience who maybe doesn't know they need that, right? Or doesn't even know it exists. And that's the beauty of being in the YouTube kind of marketplace, if you will, is people are searching, how do I, do whatever these things. And so I think that makes a lot of sense. And you're focusing on, as you mentioned, the pain points. You can't go wrong if you're easing them of the pain that they have. Well, I want to talk more
right.
about your process here in just a second, but one more question, and we'll dive in deeper into breaking down the content. So, kind of as you think about, you've been doing this now for a couple of years. What's one tip you would give our audience just to improve their videos in their work? So, they might be doing what you were doing at Microsoft, making videos for their coworkers, or maybe they're trying to get their own YouTube tutorials, videos started. What's something that you've learned that you say, this is really a great tip about making video?
Yeah, I think the number one tip is figure out, what is the need that someone has, and then the video should address that exact need. And what I think is the thing that's beautiful about video is because you're editing the video, you have all these opportunities to go back and make modifications to make sure that you're telling a really clear story. So I think the key thing is understand what the need is, and then take advantage of this medium. So whether you're using Camtasia or some other product, you have all these opportunities to deliver this message that directly addresses that need. And that's what I think is beautiful. But I think like have a really clear need and then use the medium of video to really deliver an effective message.
Yeah, I love that. Well, Kevin, I want to jump into you as a content creator, your a little bit of your process. But so you made this jump from working at Microsoft, obviously a big company, lots of opportunity, to something that seemed a little bit scary, right? Being a full-time content creator. What was the signal to you that like, okay, I'm going to go down this content creation path? Was because I've got to imagine, and sorry, I feel like I'm expounding a lot here, but I got to imagine there's like, you have to have loved making those videos at Microsoft, or this would be like not really that exciting to do.
Yeah, I when I first started pushing out my videos, I think I was, when I was just starting out, I might get, let's say, 100 views on a video or 200 views on a video. And what excited me about that was it's like I just helped, 100 people, or I just helped 200 people learn how to do this or learn how to take advantage of their technology. And like that feeling of knowing that, like, hey, I've unblocked people so they can now get more done in their job or at school or wherever they happen to be using this technology. That I think that was really exciting. And I think I was just as excited when I got 100 views versus when I got 100,000 views or a million views. And I think earlier I said that that's the beauty of video. It just scales so nicely where, not only can you teach 10 people, but you could also teach 10 million people. And I think that's what really kind of lit this fire under me, where it's like, wow, you could impact so many people.
Yeah, I love that. And we feel that here too. I know we're not the largest podcast listened to. There's so many others, but those that we help. And I get email. You probably get emails and messages all the time, right? That it made a difference. It helped them. And that's a reward in of itself. So
Yeah,
Kevin, yeah,
Matt, I just want to share one example. I thought this was awesome. So like working at Microsoft, you're building, software and products that a lot of people use. And in a way, you're impacting a lot of people. You're helping them with their work. But with video, you get that same thing, but it almost feels more personal. And this was part of what kind of caused me to take that transition to making video full time. And recently, I think I shared this story with you before, but I was at Safeway, which is a grocery store in the United States, and I was checking out, and the most incredible thing happened. The lady at the checkout counter was like, "Oh my gosh, it's Kevin! It's the Microsoft guy." and I was like, "Oh, do I know you? How do I know you?" And she's like, "Oh, I've watched some of your videos." And it turned out she was an administrative assistant at a healthcare chain in the Seattle area, and she had watched some of my videos, and it had helped her at work. And she just wanted to say thank you for those videos that I pulled together because it helped her get a task done that her manager had asked her to do. And that's where, at Microsoft, you're impacting, millions of people, but it feels less personal because you're not actually like, those people don't know that it was you who helped them. But here, someone came up to me and said, "Oh my gosh, it's you pulled this video together and it directly helped me." And that feeling is just so amazing to know that you impacted someone.
Yeah, I love that. And on some small scale, I've had those experiences because I've been at TechSmith for a really long time making tutorials, and there's nothing like it. It really is an amazing feeling to know, because it's millions of people doesn't. I can't picture that. I can't picture a million people, but I can picture that one person, and that's really awesome. And
Right.
I'm sure. You got to be careful. At some point, you're going to have too many people. You're not going to be able to walk around. Everyone's going to know Kevin Stratvert. So Kevin, let's step back into the kind of this creative process. You talked about finding this pain point, right? And thinking about like what's the need that someone might have around whether a particular product. And I've been impressed that you cover so many products. It's not just like you're an expert at PowerPoint. You have stuff on coding like Python, and you've got a lot of the business suites, and Power BI is Microsoft, but it's not. You just cover this broad breadth. So I'm curious, when you say like, okay, I know there's a need here, I know I can solve a pain point. What does it look like to go from kind of like that general, like, okay, I should probably do something, through to like a created piece? Or do you have a particular process you follow? Is it very kind of organic flow? What do you do?
Yeah, so a little about my process. Really, step one is all about ideation. So what are the needs that people have? And it's very much like building a product, right? When you build a product or you're building software, like even let's take Camtasia as an example, you're trying to figure out what features should we build into this product. Well, so the question is, well, what does the customer need? What is customer feedback that we're hearing? You can look at what have competitors done. So you have all these different lenses that you take at how should we prioritize these different items. And video creation is the same process where you try to figure out, what is the need for all these different topics. I have a list of probably 2,000, 3,000 video ideas. It just, keeps growing and growing and growing. And there are more and more videos on there. And the big question is, well, which one do you do?
Yeah.
And that's probably the most important question, because if you make a video on a topic that doesn't help as many people, well, now you spend all this time of producing, filming, editing, and then it just doesn't impact that many people. So I'd say in terms of the process, the number one most important thing is what video or idea do you end up creating? And I think just like with a product, like with Camtasia, what features do you build? That's the most important question, because next year when it comes time to renew, are those features compelling enough that customers are going to want to upgrade? So that's by far most important part of the flow, just coming up with, what is the topic? And then I think the second most important part is what is basically the script or the storyline that explains how it works? And this is where it's just kind of this curiosity of, digging into the product and really just understanding it inside and out. So anytime I pull together a video, it's like, let me understand, like I kind of laugh about this, but when I worked at Microsoft as a product manager, we wrote specifications of how the feature should work. And
Yep.
then we worked with developers and designers to bring it to life. And like when I pull together these videos, it's almost like I'm reverse engineering what the feature spec is. So I want to understand it inside and out. Like if I click on this or if I do that, how does the feature behave? And I've gotten to the point now where Microsoft and other companies will share with me kind of the inner workings, or almost like a public version of the spec that I could just take and say, okay, now I understand it. And then that basically forms my script for the video. And once I have that, the rest of the process is pretty easy. Then it's just sitting in front of the camera, kind of walking through it, sitting in front of the computer screen and kind of walking through how it works, and then editing and then posting out and kind of checking the performance to see how it did. But kind of as I've gone through this flow more and more, you start to get a better sense for, okay, this is a good video topic. This is an idea that'll impact a lot of people, and so you start getting better at that process. Although at the same time, occasionally I have my duds where it doesn't do as well, or maybe there was something I was very passionate about, but it turns out not that many other people are passionate about. So it's I feel like I'm constantly learning going through that process. What works, what doesn't work, and then just making improvements to that process.
Well, I'm chuckling here listening to you talk about like, oh, well, you get your script and your stuff together. Then it's just a matter of recording. Like, no big deal, right? Like, my guess is there's a bunch of people in the audience saying like, that's really the hard part for me, Kevin. I don't know what to do. So let's talk about that, because I love that you're doing that. I'm assuming the scripts are pretty tight. You're probably not ad-libbing a whole bunch, because with software in particular, there's very specific, got to do it this way. Even though there's like 7 different ways to do things. So once you've got your script, are you doing like just walk us through that recording and kind of editing process? Is it, like really heavy? Are you pretty, because you've scripted, is it light on the editing? I'll inject here and say, like, watching your videos, I was impressed that you've got really good pace. It didn't feel like you were doing anything. You didn't do anything crazy. There wasn't really fancy transitions. And that's not to say it's not like difficult to make, but the simplicity of it really spoke to me. Like, oh, that's really straightforward. It's like showing a really good approach of what I might see. Felt very much like over the shoulder without the complication of a shoulder, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think number one, and I said that the kind of the idea and the script, or really, I guess the best way to put it is the content is truly king. And even if your, say, video quality isn't quite ideal, like I look back on my channel at some of my very early videos, and like I didn't have great lighting, my sound was less than ideal, and I feel bad about that. It's like, wow, like these things could have been better. But at the end of the day, the thing that people come to watch these videos for is, again, like, you have some problem, you have some need, and you want to solve that. And the content is really, can I solve this problem that someone has? And that's, I think that's why people watch these videos. Like, I want to solve some problem. I want to unblock myself so I could go on with my day and get something done. And that's always been kind of the, I guess, philosophy behind my videos. Am I helping someone complete a task, get something done, as quickly as possible? Like when you tune into a video, you don't want to hear the story about someone's day. You come in with some specific question in mind, and then, is this person going to help me solve this in kind of the most, I guess, like, concise and succinct way as possible? So I guess the approach I take is like, value the viewer's time, and then deliver the information that they want. So that's kind of the approach I take, and I feel like that's worked well, or that at least resonates.
I think your success speaks for itself, right? Like, I think it does resonate with people. So I want to go back to this idea that you talked about with Microsoft, and the tech specs, right? Because this is I'm putting some pieces together. Like I've never thought of it that way, and I think it's really interesting. Um, and so as you're like when you're going through this kind of mental process of writing your script, which is again, what like you said, the kind of the bulk of the work, are you looking for like the happy ideal path? Are you looking for new paths? Like, to walk us through like, let's say you've got a new piece of software in front of you. Maybe you know a little bit about it, but like, and you know there's some problems there. I mean, we can stick with the PowerPoint example because that's I think one that most people can relate to. Um, like I can't imagine you're actually trying to write a tech spec for it yourself. I mean, you could do that, but like, are just I guess walk me through how you do that because what I'd really like to get to for our audience is like when they are setting out to make their videos or they're thinking about communicating something to their audience. You know, what's something they could glean from that process? Because I've never written a tech spec. I don't even really know. I know we have project managers who do that, but I don't know that I
Mhm.
know what goes into it.
Yeah, it's like when I think of my script and my walkthroughs, like in a sense, it's almost like a video version of the spec. And I like knowing how like when I say approach PowerPoint AI, um, I'll go to the team and reach out and say, hey, like can usually I kind of explore the software first myself. So in the case of PowerPoint AI, like I'll play with it and I kind of test out different scenarios and try to understand all the way it works. And so one example is like with PowerPoint AI, you put some text on the slide, and when you run the what's called the designer tool, it'll look at your slide and then come up with a design based on the content on the slide. Um, but then what's interesting is if you have bullet points on your slide, so let's say you have 3 bullet points, well, now the designer will look at that and it inserts icons that relate to those 3 bullet points that you have. So I go through the feature myself and say, hey, let's see if I understand all the ways this works. And then, like in this case, I have contacts with the PowerPoint team, so I reached out to them and I said, "Hey, I'm thinking about making a video on this, the designer feature in PowerPoint, and I've played with the feature, and I saw that it works this way. Like, is this comprehensive? And does this cover all the ways you could use this feature?" And then the PowerPoint team came back to me and they're like, "Oh yeah, no, this covers a lot of them, but you could also insert live video onto a slide, and then designer will also recommend designs that place your live video in all these different positions and all these different designs." Uh, and so they would come back and say, hey, like make sure you also cover this or that. So I think like number one step is like make sure you understand the scenario or the product that you're talking about in the most complete way possible. And usually it's reading articles, seeing what other videos have been done on the topic, reaching out to the product team and asking them for feedback. And so that way I have this full understanding of how the feature works. And in fact, like I like at that point, you could almost step on the team and be like, "Oh yeah, I'm the feature PM for the AI in PowerPoint because I understand it so well." And I think like once you have this really comprehensive understanding of how the feature works, then you could break it down and simplify it into the video form where you explain it to someone. And so like usually when I have my script, I have all the different scenarios, all the way it works, and then I'll say, okay, make sure to show content on a slide and how designer works. Make sure I have a slide with some bullet points and show how it works. Make sure I have the live video and with the designer and show how that works. So that's what helps me form kind of my script or my outline. It's just understanding all the scenarios, and then my script hits on all those different points.
One thing that and I know I keep you going to this this AI PowerPoint video because I think it's a good instructive one. The thing that I saw that you did that was interesting to me from a video creation process is because I've seen Designer, I've used it on like I was in a hurry, I needed it right instead of designing my own slides, and it works pretty well. But the one thing that was really interesting is that what you opened up there was not that, because I think this happens to a lot of people. They get in, they push a button, it does something, and they're like, I like it or I don't. But you were able to take it kind of to that next level. So, for instance, that I think you copied in you had put designer, you used designer, put in new slides, and so then it formatted those slides to match like the color theme, and like it was kind of like taking that next step down. And I thought that was really an interesting approach. That what you as a video creator offer is not just the hey, here's designer, you can change the way your slide looks, but here's designer. Now let me show you kind of to that next, what you like, how you can form, because most people don't make one slide, right? They make a series of slides to convey their message. So I thought that was an interesting approach that speaks to what you're talking about from a feature Like the feature is not just that it designs one slide, it will affect all your slides.
Yeah. And you know, the funny thing is, like having worked at Microsoft on the product side where you're, you know, building these features, like there's so much thought that goes into each individual feature. Like it might seem like, you know, with Designer, it's like, oh, I click a button, it gives me the slide design. Uh, but there's so many, you know, almost like sub scenarios and so much thought that goes into each one of these features. And at least what I try to do with my videos is really understand inside and out, you know, everything about that feature, and then share that with the audience. So by the end of it, you will know everything you ever needed to know about how to take full advantage of Designer. Another example I think of a lot is pivot tables in Excel. Like if you think you know pivot tables, you know, just wait until you know really dig into the feature, and then you'll discover all these things you didn't know were possible. And like usually when these features are designed, there's so much kind of thoughtfulness that goes into them, and these videos are really about exposing all the ways you could leverage a feature. Because I think a lot of people when you're just exploring software on your own, you know, you take a quick glance, you know, let's say you insert a pivot table and you're like, oh, cool, like it summarized my data. But then there are all these other things you could do. You could insert charts based on it. You could, you know, get the running percentage total, and you know all these other things that you might not have known are possible. And that's really what these videos are trying to expose. You know, show that really in depth look at the feature in a really kind of concise way. So you know, maybe you have a question about, you know, how do I make my slides more beautiful, and you're going to know all the different ways to get the best possible looking slide.
Well, as a part of a software company, we know our users don't use all the features to the depth that they have, and our developers do. You know, developers, they do great work. It's amazing what they do because it does, especially when it makes it so simple. You click a button, and you think, oh, it did all the work. I don't have to think about this. I have a question though. As you are, you know, you're trying to pack a lot of information, and that can be a challenge because sometimes, you know, longer videos, obviously people get distracted or there's so many things. Has that what's your philosophy about length of video and what you try to do to kind of balance, like, gosh, I want to give them all this information, I want to give them some depth versus like, I know my audience may or may not stick around for this because just they see it's 8 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. God, do I want to watch 10 minutes? Like kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a really good question, and usually the approach I take is like I don't, you know, unnecessarily lengthen a video just to make it longer. Usually the approach I take is, you know, there's some topic that people want to learn about, and you know, the approach I take is just deliver as much value in the time as possible. So like if you're coming to learn about Designer, I'm going to give you a comprehensive view about, you know, how the entire feature works. And if that takes 5 minutes, then that's great. If I could deliver all that information in 5 minutes, perfect. If it takes 10 minutes, you know, that's perfect as well. You know, I think back to this video I did on this is an Excel video, but how to use VLOOKUP. And you know, if you just use VLOOKUP at the very basic level, you know, you could learn that in, you know, let's say 2-3 minutes, and you're like, okay, I got it. You know, makes sense. I could look things up in this, you know, in a list, doing a vertical lookup. Uh, but then there are all these nuances to the features and all these additional things you can do. Uh, and so usually the approach I take is like, you know, the very essential information, you know, try to deliver that as quickly as possible. So if you tune into this, you know, 20-minute video, you know, the first 2-3 minutes show you kind of the essentials of how to get started and, you know, how you could run with it. But if you want to stick around and learn all about the feature and all the different ways you could use it, you know, that's there as well. So I think a longer form video, like deliver the most important information up front, so you know someone could, you know, get their task done and move on if they want to. But if they want to stick around and really be a master at VLOOKUP, then they can do that as well. I think also building on this, what's really interesting is, you know, you have all these short form platforms now. So you have, you know, TikTok, you have YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels. And it's another way to deliver information, but in a much smaller package. So I've been experimenting with that, where you know have longer form videos that go, you know, far more in depth, and then you also have shorter videos where, you know, maybe you just have, you know, a minute and you want to learn a few new Excel functions that you could use. You know, that's an option too. So I think it's really you know, making content that caters to people wherever they might be. You know, if you have very short time, if you have longer time, but I think it all goes back to, you know, respect the viewer's time, you know, don't waste time, you know, answer a question and provide value the entire time, and don't go on kind of unnecessarily long. And like the interesting thing is I did a video on like introduction to Python, and I think that's almost an hour, which, you could say, wow, that's a long time to sit down and watch a video. But if your question is like, hey, I want to be able to program and have my computer do things for me, sitting down for an hour, that's actually a pretty short amount of time to learn the essentials or basics of Python. So I think a lot of it comes down to the topic and what you're trying to accomplish.
Well, I love that answer because I know we've done some research at TechSmith kind of about preferences for video length. And the clear answer is, 10 years ago, I would have told you 3 or 4 minutes, but now it's not clear. It's not, preferences are all over the board. And I think it's because of what you said. I might have a task I need to get done in and out, or I might want to go deep. And that's a valuable thing to have too. So I love that. Well, Kevin, this has been just awesome to talk to you. We're not done with our questions. We're gonna jump over to our speed round questions. So these are quick questions with quick answers, and we're gonna play a little stinger, and we'll be right back in a second. All right, Kevin, we're gonna go over to our dice cam. We're gonna roll a die and ask. We got 12 potential questions. We don't know what questions we're gonna ask, Kevin. So for one of your alma mater, I'm assuming I'm gonna roll a blue die. I don't have a blue and gold die, but let's see here. So let's see what question comes up. It is gonna be a number 4. So let's bring this up here. All right, Kevin. So we're gonna ask you about, what's a tip or best practice not mentioned today that you would want to share with us around video? Anything you think would be like important for us to know?
I would say like the main thing I always think of is the willingness to learn and just continuous improvement. So if you're pulling together videos, just every single video, try to do one thing better. And after you do 10, 20, 30 videos, they're gonna start looking a lot better through continuous improvement.
Yeah, gotta get those that Atomic Habits 1% better principle, right? Awesome. I love
Exactly.
it. I
Yeah.
love it. Okay, next question is a 5. Okay. So, Kevin, you have become an expert at video and about breaking down software. And you get to talk about these things in your bio and your work. But what's something you're an expert at that we might not know about? So not video.
I think so. I have 2 young kids, and finding kid activities on the weekend, I've gotten pretty good at knowing what kids might enjoy. So that's a skill that I've built up over the past few years.
And an essential one, right? Because I've got kids myself, and yeah, it could be a challenge keeping them happy and occupied and growing and developing. So that's a good one. I'm sure if anyone's in Seattle, you can always throw some tips at them. All right, we'll do one more question here,
That's right.
Kevin. One more, number 1.
All right.
Okay, so you obviously have a plethora of things that you could talk about, but where do you draw, like, I'm not talking about what drawing inspiration from, like what software should I do next, but like as you're a creator. So what's the well you go to draw inspiration and creativity from?
Yeah, even just like when I look at my studio and the lighting and the sound, like I produce YouTube videos, and I'm a big believer in learning information through video. And I definitely practice what I preach, and like I go to YouTube to learn as much as possible. So just in terms of like how to set up lighting, how to set up your camera, how to set up your microphone, like I've learned all those things from watching other creators on YouTube teach that, and so I've just learned a ton, and I think that's a fantastic source of information. So yeah, I go to YouTube all the time to learn about all sorts of different topics.
Well, I love that because I do the same, and there's always something new to learn, right? New camera things, lighting things, new techniques. So, well, Kevin, I mean, thank you so much for spending time. I know you've got a full plate of things that you're doing, videos you're always working on. So for anyone who's interested in learning more, they want to maybe connect with you or watch your videos, where should they turn?
Yeah, so hopefully you could find me just about anywhere. But if you go to YouTube, search for Kevin Stratvert. Typically, if you search for most products, like if you search for Camtasia or Microsoft Teams, chances are you'll also see my face on there. And then also Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, Twitter, any one of those platforms, you can search for Kevin Stratvert and you'll find me there.
Awesome. And everyone should go do that after they're done listening to this, right? We'd love to have you guys follow. And just as a public way of saying thank you. I've seen your Camtasia videos and your other videos that are TechSmith related. Again, just you do such a great job breaking down software in a way sometimes that we don't even aren't able to do, just because we're also. I think sometimes you're like, I'm the maker of this thing. Let me talk about it in this specific way, whereas you can talk about the needs. So thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me, Matt. This was great to talk through this.
Absolutely. All right, everybody, we're going to wrap up there today. Kevin is a fantastic person. Go watch him on YouTube, TikTok, whatever your social media of choice is. He is there with great videos, and they are really informative and instructive and just great examples if you're looking at how do I make videos for my organization that would help someone to learn. So with that said, we're grateful for everybody that tunes into the show. Go ahead and subscribe on YouTube. Go ahead, make sure you do those things if you're listening on any of the podcasting platforms to help follow. And we'd love to hear from you. You can always email us at thevisuallounge@techsmith.com or tag us on social media. We will find it, and we'd love to know what you think about the show. And we'd like to end the way we always do, that wherever you are in your video creation or image use process, we hope that you take a little bit of time to level up every single day.